you need to do a pivot to video, and video should be a part of your marketing strategy and your digital strategy. There's stuff that you can do on your phone like that. And if that's where you have to start from a marketing side to justify getting into video, then that's where you start.
Welcome to the Supercharge Marketing Podcast. I'm Pius, the VP of Growth at Lumen5, an AI video creator made by marketers for marketers. This podcast is a rally call for those who believe in purposeful content, brand storytelling, and thought leadership. We feature insights and best practices from forward-thinking marketers and B2B leaders, daring you to stand out in the rapidly evolving world around us. Are you ready to supercharge your marketing? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Supercharge Marketing, brought to you by Lumen5. I'm your host, Pius Chan, and with me today is Chris Kopech. Chris comes to us with over 15 years of marketing and communications experience, having held responsibilities in communications and multimedia, and presently the marketing manager at CBRE, the world's largest commercial real estate services and investments firm. Chris is a seasoned communications and marketing professional with a background in video production for television. He's worked in video marketing for many of his roles, from creation to strategy, and has often been dubbed as the go-to video guy. So Chris is also a customer and hopefully a fan of Lumen5's. So I'm very excited to have him on today. Chris, great to connect, and thanks for being here. Maybe let's kick off a little bit about yourself and what drew you to video, comms, and marketing.
Of course. Hi, Pius. How are you? And hello to the audience out there. Good to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. Really happy to talk about video, one of my loves in the professional side for a very long time. So I'm very excited to be here. What dragged me here? I went to undergrad to be a teacher and had way more fun doing a sports talk radio show, and decided that the only thing I wanted to do was live in the radio and production building down in Miami. So that's what sort of drove me into it. That's why I have sort of leaned into being the video guy in all the places that I've been to, and why I think it is such a fun and interesting field to work in. And tying it into marketing is really a really cool. It's a really cool thing to do, and we're in a really cool time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your experience kind of lends it to the whole, looking at things as a whole. So my first question to you really is, how has your background in video for television impacted how you approach video for marketing?
That's a good question, because my background is in a very traditional sense of video. My first thing that I ever did was editing reel-to-reel highlights on Betamax when I worked for a news station down in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I really hope that doesn't age me to the point where a lot of your listeners have to Google some of those sentences. That would be bad. But for the most part, we're very, my background has been pretty traditional in how that was created. But now you said something around several years later, how it has changed a little bit. So, I get to take that more traditional background in video production and see how people are using video in the marketing field, and how I'm able to sort of use some of my experiences, but also be able to do things a lot faster and a lot easier, and on a lot more platforms. It used to be that video was a very hard thing to approach because you needed a very specific kit of tools, not only physical tools to actually shoot and edit, but you also needed the skill set to be able to actually do the production work and edit things together and have a finished product that you could actually use to sell things. So it's been interesting that I have those background skills from when I was coming up, but just to see how things have taken off, being able to use those in different ways has really been important to my work in video marketing, and I think is really something that you're seeing a lot of in the video marketing field generally.
Yeah, that you bring up a good point. I mean, in the past, it was very hard to create videos, and I think the creation aspect was a big blocker for a lot of lay folks, right? And if you didn't have the tools, you didn't have the cameras, you didn't have the computer to analyze and fix these things that you film, you couldn't come up with an end product that a lot of folks want to do. And I think technology has brought us a long way in helping us with that creation, but now, when you look at video, a lot of people are looking at the output, right? And a lot of teams want to do video or have been tasked to do video, but not a lot of people can talk about why. A lot of people know they should do video, and why would they need to? And maybe you can kind of shed some light into what that has been all about in the past, and how that's maybe changed or not changed from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Well, the whole idea of a pivot to video strategy is by no means new. It's been happening for the last decade, the last 2 decades almost, where people have started to really use video as a strategy. But look at the environment that we're in now, and some of these numbers may be a little stale, but TikTok, which has wasted more hours in my life on the couch during the pandemic, and since then, um, they're dealing with, I think it's somewhere around 45 million daily active users, and probably more than that now. YouTube has over 120 million daily active users. It's a video friendly platform, and if you look at how to use video, not just posting video or video specific platforms. But I think the set that I always see is that LinkedIn, where we're all eventually headed anyway with all of our marketing efforts, LinkedIn videos tend to perform a factor of 10 or 20 times better, at least from an engagement or sharing standpoint, when there's video that's used as the primary informational tool that you're using it, which is, I think, one of the reasons why you need to do a pivot to video, and video should be a part of your marketing strategy and your digital strategy. If done right, video is incredibly important just because that's where the eyeballs are, and that's where your audience is, that's where your leads are, and that's where you can start converting on those from a business perspective.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too, and what stuck out to me was done right, and I think that's where we're seeing a lot of folks struggle right now. Is a lot of B2B companies, especially obviously, lag behind B2C, and B2B follows where the consumers are, and a lot of enterprise companies are struggling to scale video and to make it work for them. What do you think that quote unquote done right is, and how can marketing teams and enterprises do it right?
That's a really good question. I think it's the fun part about video is that it can be very, very specific and tailored to the different industries. So now uh, I'm working in the CRE field, so and on commercial real estate predominantly, and it's pictures tell 1,000 words, but videos tell even more. We're in a field where if you can't get someone into a building, we have the tools to take them around a building and show them what's going on and see what the neighborhood looks like in stunning 4K video. That you can do that. We can, as the kids say, we can catch them all in 4K, showing off all the properties and things like that. I hope I used that right. Anyway, but there are other things too. Some of my background is also on the FM side in facilities management. And the biggest part of facilities management is it's not necessarily the most glamorous of stories to tell, but there are really good stories that you can tell. And doing it in video will help really personalize certain aspects of it. So instead of just telling a story about HVAC, for example, you're telling a story about why HVAC people are important, or why HVAC operators, or why an HVAC forward strategy is important to your facility strategy, et cetera. And then in other previous work I've done, it's a tool for telling the story, but it's also a tool for showing people how things are done. I used to work in government and in education, and there's no better way of illustrating a process for a lot of people than being able to see how that process works in video. It's very different from just seeing, a PowerPoint with the steps listed or a Word doc with the steps listed. You can actually see how something works from start to finish. And I don't know how many times I've ever jumped onto Google and YouTube and searched how to do this around my house, for example, and then figured out how, this is what I need to tighten so that my sink stops dripping at nighttime. You can't really do that in words or in still pictures as well as you can in video. So again, it's about doing right, but it's about knowing what your industry is looking for. And we've seen how in different parts of the industry, people are able to use video, especially where I've been in my career.
Yeah, I love that. And you actually do mention a big point that we talk about all the time, which is purposeful content and really telling the right stories. I think, where some marketers might go down the wrong path is they think that they can turn anything into a video and turn anything into a certain type of video. But if they're not telling the right story to the right audience at the right time, it doesn't really go anywhere. And it's kind of a lost effort in that way. How have you been able to tell the right stories at the right time through video? And to your point, if I'm looking for a how to fix, I'll go to a specific type of video. If I'm looking for information, then I'm looking for maybe researching a certain tool that I'm looking for. I'll look at certain different types of videos. Or if I'm just kind of, like you said, surfing TikTok and my mindset's on a certain thing at the time, and it's after work, I'm not thinking about work at all, and my mind's in a different place. How can these B2B enterprise companies hit me up with their ads and make me engage with them in that way. And I think that's really telling the right stories at the right time. In your traditional experience with television, that's obviously very, very important, because all of that has been scripted, has been kind of made sure that the audience is reached at that right time. How does that now translate to the world of the internet, where everything is available all the time, anytime, and you really don't know who you're reaching at a specific time?
Well, I think that sort of goes to how marketing, I think, generally is a pretty cyclical endeavor. Like, I remember, let's go back a few years when every brand was trying to do the Wendy's thing and basically roasting all of their followers, and then every brand tried to do that, and that necessarily wasn't the most successful thing for a lot of brands to do. Now we're in the place. Yeah, they were good at it too. Whoever was running those social media accounts, they did a pretty darn good job at that, because that's all people talked about for a long time. That one guy, I remember, had to get 1 million retweets to get free nuggets for life, and he got close, and I think they ended up giving him 2 a year or something. Anyway, that's not happening right now because it's cyclical. Now everyone's in the, get it on video and do it right, which is why you're seeing a lot of brands, for example, on TikTok, who are starting to have a personality of their own, and they're engaging the same way that general, random non-influencer users do too, because that's where the eyeballs are. That's what's successful. And where we are as, as marketers, how do we tell the right story? A lot of that is going to depend on being able to create or have actionable data to use. So you're not just creating video for the sake of creating video. And I think that's an important distinction, because it is important to have a video first strategy. And we've talked about that a little bit so far, but it's important to do that. But it's also important to know that, like, you can't just rely on the fact that, well, we have a video presence now. That's not the answer. You need to be able to create really good content, or if not good content, at least engaging content, and be able to deploy it in the right ways and in the right places, which is why, things like analytics that you're offered, that you get from the sites where you're posting, or the analytics you get on where you're deploying video, if you're doing it on a website or something like that. That's very important to see, how are people interacting with what's going on? If you do like heat tracking on where people are clicking on your website, if they're using it from their phone or if they're accessing it from a desktop, what they're looking at, what they're clicking on, you're able to see exactly how they're interacting. And if they're skipping over your video content, and you can see that they're doing that, then maybe it's time to either repurpose that or move it somewhere else, or maybe come up with a better strategy for putting your content out there. So it's important to obviously have a video first mindset, I think, but it's also really important to make sure that the content is matching what your users want. And especially when you're trying to nail down leads, or you're trying to do it from a business development standpoint, you're meeting your customers where they are.
Oh, I love that. You're not creating videos for the sake of creating videos. That's definitely a great quotable there, and something that maybe a lot of B2B marketers aren't thinking about right now.
It's the it's the non-influencer influencer mindset. Most of that is just posting videos and videos to get the numbers up. But if you're strategic about it, you're going to have a better hit rate if you're a lot more strategic with how you're doing it.
Yeah. Do you think that's detrimental, or do you think it doesn't matter at all? If for example, if I'm putting out a video every day and some hit but some don't, versus being thoughtful about every single video that I'm putting out?
I think that goes to sort of, the strategy. And if the strategy is, pound them with content as much as you can, then yeah, you're going to want to put out a video every day. And that's where I think platforms are important. And being specific about which platforms you're posting to is another important thing. Like TikTok, yeah, do daily video things there. And it also helps that 16:9 portrait video is also used on Instagram and is also used on YouTube. So you can repurpose that content and get more eyeballs on it that way. But if you're not just trying to have engagement, you're actually trying to get, say, click-throughs on certain things that you're doing. You're actually trying to attract people to different parts of a campaign that you're running, or a different portion of your website where you're trying to get traffic to. Then engagement isn't necessarily the thing you're looking for. You're not looking for the the double tap hearts. You're looking for people to check the link in the bio and then hopefully convert that way. So it's being very considerate and setting goals early is a really important part, and a really big key to success when using video as a marketing strategy.
Yeah, very cool. And I love that we've talked a lot about the strategy and a video first strategy and what that looks like. Maybe you can kind of dive into how you manage that now, and some of the tactical ways that you can share with some of our audiences. Like, how do you create, that strategy, and what are some of the lines that you follow afterwards?
Yeah, I think the biggest tip that I can think of is that preparation is key. If you're, and I've done the one man team thing or the one person team where I had a couple of hats where I was the CMO and the creative director, the design director, the copywriter, and the branding expert. And that was all just marketing specialists. They just consolidated all that nicely for you. Then it's very important that you have the ability to, lead that strategy forward, but you need to make sure you're set up for success so that you're able to move forward in a situation like that. And if you're part of a bigger digital team, and I think this is really important, it's making sure you're working with the different parts of your marketing teams to ensure that what you have is ready for a digital deployment, is ready for video. You can have a brand that looks incredible in PowerPoints and a brand that will hang in a museum one day, but if it doesn't look good on a 16:9 portrait video on TikTok, which is what you want to do, then it's not going to matter how good it looks. It's just not going to work. Or if you have something that doesn't really sit well or doesn't deploy well to your website, or you don't have a website that's built for video, then you can be in a lot of trouble if you want to put video first. So I think it's really the biggest key. And I think the first thing is making sure that preparation is set up so that anything that you want to do, it won't matter unless you're prepped to actually have a video and digital first mindset. And I think after that, it's the fact that the digital marketer who's taking this on, it's incumbent upon them to fight for that and make sure that everyone is on board with that strategy. And at the end of the day, the rising tide is going to lift all the ships up, and they're going to see that, video has its place in every single industry and every single side. We talked about how I've used it in FM, how I've used it in government, how I've used it and how I would like to use it in CRE as well. There's a place for it. It's just making sure that you're prepared for it, and then actually making sure that there's a support for it as well.
That's a good point. You never really think about that when you say we're trying to deploy a video strategy. Video is first, and this video-led marketing strategy has been kind of floating around for a little while now. And like I said earlier, a lot of B2B marketers are struggling with how to scale this. And I think a lot of that comes from buy-in. And you touch on a good point where you say that make sure everyone is on board with this strategy. How have you done this in the past where you've made sure everyone's on board with the strategy, that there's wins across all the different teams that are touched by the strategy?
That's a good question. I think one of the big things is that it's no longer, like you say, you may be working with people who, when you say we want to do video first, they think that you need to basically do a shot for shot remake of Inception and basically have all of the CGI and spend all the money to do it. Hire Steven Spielberg to direct your first TikTok, things like that. And I think that's one of the most important things about that. We're sitting in interesting economic times. There have been a lot of interesting personnel changes in the fintech side of things and on the technology side over the last couple months. And I know there's probably not a lot of companies that are saying, yeah, sure, we will go ahead and build you a movie studio. We'll do that right after we're done paying everybody bonuses and giving everybody a raise because business is booming and there's no inflation or anything like that. It's just not the case. That's not where we are. Luckily, this isn't 10 years ago. This isn't 5 years ago even, where now platforms and devices exist where you don't need necessarily to go out and buy a $2,000 Canon video camera just to shoot something nice. You can, this sort of gets rid of any credibility. That's fine, but you can shoot pretty darn good video on any iPhone made in the last 2 years or any Android phone made in the last 2 years. You can shoot pretty high quality video, and as long as you have a decent eye for what you're doing and your thumb isn't in the way of the lens, you're going to have stuff that's going to translate pretty well in terms of what it will end up looking like. And if that's not the direction you want to go in, there are plenty of really good platforms that exist that make it so that having content show up as video is as easy as just clicking a few buttons or even copying and pasting a link to an article into a CMS, and then it can turn that into a video. Now, obviously, I may be talking about a certain platform that may have something to do with this podcast. I'm a big fan of Lumen 5 because of that. It does make it just easy to have content that may have otherwise just been static content on a website or as part of a social media campaign, but you're able to create video with platforms like that. And I think that's a really important step. I get LinkedIn ad spammed every now and then. And the messaging, it makes me laugh. It says, you're a marketing specialist, not a video expert. I'm like, nah, you can be both. Like, there are platforms that make that easy. Lumen 5 is a really good example of that, where you can almost let the software and the platform do the job for you. And if you and if you have the knowledge base, like, I happen to have a knowledge base around that where I know what I'm looking for, but you can also let the platforms do the job for you, and then they can do it for good prices where it's not going to really be that big of a huge gap in a budget. And you're able to, in these rather difficult times in a lot of places, have that video strategy without it absolutely breaking the bank.
Oh, that's a great point you bring up. And like we said earlier, I think that the tools and technology as we've evolved across the last 10, 20 years has really helped the non-video professional make videos in a professional manner. And the creation of it has been less difficult to make. But where marketers really specialize is that storytelling, right? Coming with a story, coming with that, what am I trying to tell with this video? Or what am I trying to tell with this blog? Or what am I trying to tell with a social post? It's all really just coming with, what are you trying to tell? And now the output is made easier with certain tools like Lumen 5 or any other tools. And I think that's really been the shift. And a lot of the traditional enterprise companies and traditional big companies that have been around for a long time, to your point, really does look at video first as this big production thing where we do need to have a lot of tools and very expensive people with very high level skills to create this video. And once we have this video, then what do we do with it? And I think we've cut that time short where now it's like, hey, you have this video, now what do you do with it? And that's more of the strategy as opposed to the creation aspect of it.
And to be clear, it is also very helpful to have those high-end tools and those high-end skill set people who know what they're doing in situations like that. That's why we go to see movies, and that's why we have third parties that we work with to create the big video campaigns at conferences and at trade shows, and to see what the film industry does, but how we can take those little kernels of ideas and maybe bring them into the marketing side. So I don't want to alienate all those big video people out there who I just said don't know what or can get away with using an iPhone. You absolutely can. It doesn't mean you have to. And if you have the ability to do that, though, then you absolutely have the ability to create some really, really killer content. And it's content that your competitors probably don't have, or may not have access to, or may not be able to match. And in so doing, that can be the really big difference when actually going through and executing a digital strategy, because you have that arrow in the quiver. I mean, it's the marketer's toolbook. You need to have all these things. You need to be able to write effectively. You need to be able to, market with SEO in the back of your head at all time, making sure the keywords are popping, making sure that your website is functioning in a way that actually works so that you can convert from it, making sure your social strategy is there. And if you have video as an addition, you can be doing even more interesting things and be even more successful in doing it.
Yeah. And yes, I'm with you right there. I don't mean to alienate the professionals. And earlier we were talking about purposeful content. And I think that purposeful content piece really comes into play where you look at the reason that you need this video for, right? You're not going to make a Super Bowl commercial in Lumen 5, but also you're not going to pay the budget.
Never say never.
Super Bowl commercial. Yeah. One day it'll be there. But you're also not going to pay an agency millions of dollars to make a social post that's going to be up for one day, right? And I think where you look at that type of content and you look at the overall strategy, and we see a lot of our customers do this as well, is where they still use the big production agencies or the high production videos for content that stays for a while, that has a staying power, that has larger purpose, and they also use smaller tools to create those everyday videos that are now so much more attractive than just text on a monitor.
Yeah, and it's disposable versus non-disposable video, because that's the beauty part of TikTok is there are videos that I like that I will go back occasionally and watch, but I mean, the percentage of that is so low considering it's just a quick little flip and I'm on the next one. And it can be, but you also have to be okay with the fact that there's a very good chance that some of the content you're making might be, to somebody, disposable content, where it's, oh, this is a cool thing that you did. Here's your like. It's gone on my feed and I'm never going to look at it again. And, the engagement part of that, that's a win. Maybe not the click-through part of it. That's maybe not be the win that you were looking for. But that's the fact that you are there and you're able to potentially go through and use that and learn a lesson from that. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, earlier you brought up a point about today's economy and in today's market, in this downturn economy. How is video a need to have for businesses?
Well, I think it's always a need to have anyway, just because like I'm the video guy, so I'm here to say that video is important. Like we've said, it's a cyclical thing, and right now, video's king. People are watching videos, they're engaging with videos, and they're doing all of those things. And I think the fact that it doesn't take that whole movie studio mindset to create content, and the fact there is literal disposable content. I don't know if that's a bad thing because you're creating that content. It doesn't necessarily, it's not the most expensive thing in the world to do. And it is able to have, as a marketer, you're able to have the ability to do that, which is a marketable skill, certainly. And if you're, a company that has people that can do video, then that's something that your company has that another company might not. And that can be the difference. Like that can be the difference between why this specific part of the fintech world laid off only 2% and this side laid off 7%. Like, it's because you're able to do that. And I think, marketing is one of those things that is usually first to get cut. But it's also one of those things that is, if it's successful, can really justify its existence. And, getting to a video strategy, if it's a new thing for a business or for a marketing team, getting into a more video heavy strategy, it can be very difficult and it can be tough to justify. But I think, in this economic time that we're in, it is good that, everyone's got a phone. Like I said, again, don't alienate the other people, but everyone has a phone. So you have a tool for capturing video, and everyone can jump in and use a platform like Lumen 5, or there are plenty of others that are out there as well. I mean, heck, use iMovie. It's great. It has it's Final Cut, but it's a little bit easier to use. You don't need an Adobe license anymore, although it's a nice to have to create video content, even disposable video content. There's stuff that you can do on your phone like that. And if that's where you have to start from a marketing side to justify getting into video, then that's where you start. And it's going to take, the agile and smart marketer who can use those resources to really get into it. And then from there, it's building on top and building on top and going from the disposable videos that you're just trying to generate to show that you can do it to creating actual really relevant video content that lives and has a shelf life.
Yeah, earlier you said something interesting as well, where marketing teams are usually first to get cut, and that's unfortunately very true. And I think, I was speaking to a lot of marketing leaders, and the marketing teams that do get cut are cost centers, right? The ones that cost money but they don't drive revenue. The marketing teams that drive revenue at the end of the day never get cut because they're contributing to the growth of the business. They're contributing to the success and survival of the business as well. When you look at your history with video, how has that contributed to successes of the company overall when we're looking at that one piece of content or content type? How does that drive success for marketing folks in the company?
I think that goes back to like when you're doing your preparation on any sort of strategy. Obviously, you're going to start by thinking about what success looks like on the back end. So what KPIs are you trying to hit? What kind of engagement are you looking for from the outset, and maybe from what's your baseline engagement? What do you think that's going to look like? And I was one of my previous positions. We were at a conference and we wanted to make social and we wanted to make video a big part of our presence there. On the outside, not necessarily on the floor, but for the outside part of it. And we knew that video was going to perform well and tell the story that we wanted to tell. So I worked with our social media person to ensure that not only were we hitting the pieces of social media we wanted to through still imagery and through storytelling and copywriting, but then always having some sort of video recap to show what we had done and what we were expecting to do the next time. And how does that justify itself? It put more eyeballs on our social media than we had ever had before. Because one, we were at a conference, so obviously there was a lot of interest, but also we hadn't really hit content like that before. We hadn't used content like that before, and it becomes incredibly successful, and it lets us justify, why this many marketers are required for something to make it a successful endeavor. So I think, again, preparation is important in everything. But I think it is very important when you're heading to a digital space, especially when you are against budgets, especially when you are against the need to actually bring in revenue and be, at the very least, revenue neutral, if not positive. But if you're prepared for it, you have the right tools, you have a baseline knowledge of what you're trying to do and trying to get out of it, then you can be very successful using video as a marketing tool.
Yeah, and to your point, I think when you look at video as just one pillar, it it doesn't really work that well. But when you add it to your overall strategy, like you said, you're at an event, you're using video to drive more eyes back to the content that you've already created, and video is just more engaging in any other form. And a lot of ways, when you look at videos, even the short form videos, it's like a little trailer for the bigger picture of what you're trying to show. Maybe it's to drive eyes to the event that you've had. Maybe it's to drive eyes to like a 20-page white paper that you've created full of informational stuff. But people aren't going to dive into that white paper right away. They're going to want to see what it's about. And video is a great way to do that. And I think when you slice and dice and look at repurposing existing content with video that way, it drives a lot of eyes back to it. And that can drive a success to that original content as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like there's nothing that says that you have to use video for new things either. It's a great way to retell stories. And I think one of the tools I really like on Lumen 5 is how you can like just put in a link or put in, snippets of some text, and it will automatically cut things down for you. I think AI is playing such a huge role. We're seeing AI everywhere, in terms of, Chat GPT and how AI is being used to generate images. It's going to come for the video side of things very, very soon, if not already, where you say, I would like, please, a 30-second video of a drone shot over a city skyline with the words, help us help you on it. And it's going to be able to be generated. And it's going to turn video people like me into just, hopefully not just editors and people looking at computers doing our job for us. But AI is going to be very important in that as well. And, embracing technology has always been something that a marketer has to do to be successful. And, being able to use that technology better than anyone else puts you in a really, really advantageous position.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think the evolution of marketers as we move and go lockstep with technology is to become that strategic mindset, right? Is to not just look at the creation of a certain type of content, but what do you do with it after, and how does it play into your larger company goal? And that's definitely something that we've been hearing a lot of marketers are trying to do now with OpenAI and the tools that they've put out there, and really commercialized AI to a lot of different companies who are trying to incorporate it into their tools now. So.
Yep.
Big changes.
And it's also, video is a absolutely perfect format for telling the story and doing. One of my mentors always says, create once, publish everywhere. It is absolutely one of the greatest, it's a coping strategy, if you will. One of the greatest things to use is to just create it once and then post it and publish it everywhere. Video is perfect for that, because at this point, most of the technology does all the things like codecs and formats and all of that. The platforms do it all for you at this point. And most of the platforms will take in anything that you need. So they've made it very easy to be able to do things like that. And that's really, really important. And again, it's about being strategic, but it's also about using the tools that you have, and adding this as a tool is incredibly important for any digital marketer.
Yeah, that's amazing, Chris. One last question for you in
Sure.
your experience. You mentioned, earlier that to drive a video strategy, these are things that you do have to convince, the different folks within the teams. How have you done that in the past? And our audience is primarily marketers, and how can you help them create this story where they can start creating this video first strategy within their companies?
That's a really, really involved question. I think that you have to be the evangelist. You have to be the one who can not only say that this is something that is good, this is something that we need. You have to be able to say why. You have to be able to say how. And I'm sure for the finance people on the call, you need to be able to say how much. And you need to be able to articulate that in ways that they can understand. I often say that it's important. You don't need to know how to code, but it's important to know how to at least speak code when you're talking about website development, if you're not a website developer or a professional developer. And video is the same way. We can speak video, but we also need to know how to speak marketing. We need to know how to speak brand. We need to know how to speak content. We need to know how to speak all these marketing languages. So making sure that you can speak in those languages about video is also an incredibly important part of laying down a video first side of a video first strategy, because you need to make sure that your brand people know that for video to work the way that it needs to work for a video strategy, you need this, that, and the other as an output on the design side and on the brand side. The content people need to remember that there's a difference between writing a white paper and writing copy for a video script or video that has text on screen. And you need to be able to speak like a content person when you're asking for that sort of a deliverable. And then you need to be able to teach, because this is not, some video stuff can be esoteric, but it doesn't have to be. it is very, very approachable because, I mean, look around at anyone on their phone, chances are they're going to hit a video on their phone at some point. So they're going to be familiar with what's going on. You need to be able to speak to them in their language, and also bring them into yours. And that's how you bring a team around, I think, how you can bring a team around to the video first standpoint. It is a lot easier when you're the only person running the team and you get to make that decision, because then you only have to speak your own language, which is great. But if you're not in that situation, not lucky enough, or sometimes unlucky enough to be in that situation, then it's very, very helpful to be able to be well prepared and be able to really speak to people where they are, meet them where they are, and convince them. And we're all marketers. We should be pretty good at convincing people at this point. That's why we got our jobs. So sometimes you just got to help. You got to convince people who are convincing people for a living. And if anything else, it's a really fun challenge to go out and do sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. And kind of really understanding the mental models of the people that you're trying to convince, not just customers externally, but internally, and kind of getting that buy-in from people across the board and showing them the reasons of video.
I mean, everyone's a customer when you think about it. If you
Absolutely,
think about it, everyone in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes you got to market to the person who's wearing the same name on their, or wearing the same logo on their ID badge. And that's how it works. It's good practice.
Perfect. That's amazing. Thank you, Chris. So great to hear your perspectives on this topic, and we'll continue to share relevant and timely experiences from leaders in our field. So before we wrap up, Chris, where can our audiences find you?
Oh, they don't want to find me anywhere. There's nothing interesting going on for me. But if they want, I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out there. I'm always happy to chat about all things video and about everything there. It's LinkedIn /in/ Kopech CR, KOPECHCR. And then you can find me on other social media sites. It's less interesting, and it's very much mostly local sports related stuff that I talk about, but I'm available there as well. And I'd love to chat about all this stuff whenever I get the opportunity. So anytime anyone wants to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you. And hey, listeners, we always want to keep our episodes short and impactful, and we hope you found value in what you heard today. That's our goal, is really to connect you with industry leaders with the expertise to share, so we can all grow together. As always, keep making purposeful content in this B2B world, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, hit subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to your podcast, or leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. If video is not already part of your marketing content strategy, it's not too late to start. Create amazing videos with Lumen5's AI-powered video creator without the need for any design or video editing experience. Check us out at lumen5.com to supercharge your marketing, or follow us on LinkedIn for updates and resources. As always, keep making purposeful content in this B2B world. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.